A big hello and a warm welcome to all of you amazing and beautiful people out there. Welcome back to my channel, and it's time for Ramayan.
Raja Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Raja Ram.
A lot of people have been requesting me to share the story of Ramayan, especially those who are doing serious inner work or who come for therapies and personal sessions. So here it is, the second chapter. The second chapter is actually the continuation of the first video I had shared, which was on how King Dasrath strikes down with his arrow an innocent Shravan Kumar, and because of this he gets cursed. So I will straight away get into the story. Where I had ended in the last video was when Shravan Kumar is face to face with King Dasrath, and he tells him everything, that I'm here with my parents, with my old and blind parents, and I'm taking them on a pilgrimage. However, now that you have, hit me with this arrow, I'm not going to survive. So please go and meet my parents, tell them everything, and also give them water because they're very thirsty. They are waiting for me, and you need to go and talk to them. So with a very heavy heart, Dasrath, who has finally realized his mistake, who feels like I should not have done this, Shravan Kumar tells him, I am their only support. Now I am worried that they may not survive after hearing the news of my death. I'm also not sure whether you can help them, because sooner or later they will come to know that you are responsible for all of this. O noble king, please take me to them, as I'm afraid my life force may leave the body any time now. The greatness of Shravan Kumar is that despite all of this, he is still calling him noble king. He also understands that this king is the only person who can tell his parents that they would be without their son very soon. With these words of great remorse and pathos, the young died in the lap of the king, confused and with a heavy heart, tortured by the thought of the ignoble deed for which his impatience and indiscretion were responsible. The king slowly went to the old parents, and he put the body in front of them. The sensitive ears of the father of Shravan Kumar, immediately guessed that something was amiss. Said the old man, "Who is there? Surely these heavy steps are not of our son." The king replied, "O noble Brahmin, you are right. I am King Dasrath." "Where is my son, O king? What has happened to him?" inquired the mother. With great sorrow and heavy heart, the king narrated the unfortunate event that led to the sad death of their son. Hearing this tragic news, the mother collapsed there only, never to come back to life again. The father, under great agitation and distress, thus cursed the king. So that's why we say that you should not hurt people, whether you hurt them intentionally or unintentionally. If someone is suffering because of you, then the curses never leave you. In today's world, the strange part is that so many people are hurting so many people, but they don't realize it. And so many innocent beings and animals, birds, plants, they're all getting hurt. Women, young children, young girls and boys. But nobody cares about it. They don't understand that the curses never leave them. The curses always follow. In the path of ascension, we work on our generational curses, societal curses, so that we do not allow the curse to go any further. Now, direct curses are different and indirect curses are different. And here, obviously, the situation is very bad. The king gets the curse. The curse is like this. "O king, you have indiscriminately killed a Brahmin boy. Our sorrow cannot be described in words. Our son was our only support. You have left us with no choice but to die. You have separated us from our most beloved son. I send a curse to you, O king, that you shall also die experiencing the pain and suffering of separation from your son." Soon the old man also left his body for good. What could the king do but shed tears and return back to his palace? Years passed by, and king started forgetting this sad incidents in his life about which he had not mentioned to anyone, including his 3 wives. Now I want to mention something here about the Yuga cycle, about the Yug Chakra. So what happens is, in the golden age, people are only and only focused on ascension. The dark beings are present at that time also, the demonic agents are present that time also, but they live in the Patal Lok, which is called the underground. Okay. During Corona in 2020, it was like hearsay that a lot of dark beings or demonic agents are going back to the Patal Lok, which is true because they cannot tolerate the good vibrations. The positive vibrations are difficult for them to bear. And what happens is that once the dark age is over, it will not get completely over like that, because till the time golden age does not come back, then Treta and Dwapar, they will appear, but they will be in ascension form. So earlier, when Ramayan and Mahabharata took place, that time people were in descending Dwapar and descending Treta. Now we are in the ascending Dwapar. It will be followed by the ascending Treta. So my dear friends, the energy changes, the energy shifts. Some or the other beings of the demonic world remain here, but not everyone. Also, one more thing happens in the ascension age is that they no longer can hide their true faces. The demons especially, or anyone who works for the demons, with time people would be able to see that they're actually evil, and they will not find them very beautiful or attractive or handsome or good looking either. Because it is said that in dark ages, whether it is humans, whether it is Dev, which is divine, or whether it is the demons, they all look the same. All of them look like humans. So it's very difficult to distinguish who's who. But as soon as that's over, this thing changes again. So people can from a distance recognize, okay, an asura is coming, a demon is coming, a divine being is coming, a human is coming. And if you have ever read Panchatantra stories, you would know that animals could also communicate with the human beings or other beings. Panchatantra stories are really interesting. If you ever get hands-on to it, please read it. Narnia, the famous movie, is also inspired by Panchatantra. Now we are going to enter the next phase of the story, which is childhood of Lord Shri Ram.
Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Raja Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Raja Ram 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 Sita Ram Ram.
So King Dasrath had 3 wives. He was in a polymerous setup. The first wife is Kaushalya, the second is Sumitra, and then we have Kaikeyi. All 3 queens were very beautiful, royal, graceful, and faithful to the king. Simplicity, selflessness, modesty, and willingness to sacrifice their everything for the king and the kingdom, all such virtues typical of Indian womanhood were embodied in them. A lot of people do not believe in polyamory, and Lord Shri Ram himself did not believe in it. He was a monogamous man, and he had committed to Sita. He had told Sita right from day one. Right now he's in the story, he's still in his childhood. He's still not even born actually. But later on, he would give that commitment to Sita that I'll never marry anyone else no matter what. Polyamorous relationships are good or bad, that depends on the individual's choice. But I honestly feel that any relationship which lacks honesty is not a good relationship. A man or a woman, if they have, say, more than one partner, but they're hiding it, they're keeping it a secret, then it's wrong. But say they share it with their partners and the partners are also okay with it. They say, yeah, fine, I'm fine with it. As long as you pay attention to me or you do all your duties and responsibilities, it's okay. Even if this other person doesn't and the partner goes like, I'm okay, you live with anyone, I'm fine, I feel still it is acceptable because of honesty. In today's world, I have seen that people want to be in polyamorous relationships. They want to be with different people, but they will not talk about it. They will keep it a secret. It will be a clandestine affair. And then they will end up hurting a lot of people, which is something that I don't agree with. Also, back in those days, common people were not into polyamorous relationships. They were always mostly monogamous. It was usually the kings who were in polyamorous relationships because a lot of them were also marrying to keep the peace treaties. So my dear friends, it's all about honesty actually. Nothing else, nothing is more important than being honest. All his queens had simplicity, selflessness, modesty, and willingness to sacrifice their everything for the king and the kingdom. All such virtues typical of Indian womanhood were embodied in them. They never complained about inconvenience, suffering, pain, and deficiencies any time, although such situations were also rare in a royal house. However, despite a long married life, none of the queens were blessed with motherhood. Silently, as is every Indian woman's want, they longed for their own son or daughter. The king was also aware of the undercurrent of gloom all around the palace and the kingdom. I would like to correct this point over here. More than daughters, they wanted a son, because it is also said in some of the tales that they had a sister and her name was Shanta. And Shanta was the wife of Rishi Shringa. So they needed a son because somebody had to occupy the throne. And back in those days, it was only the king who would sit on the throne. One more point I want to say is, as the descending times start, as we start moving towards the dark ages, these patriarchal problems or these societal flaws start creeping in. People are extremely masculine focused. Like, male can only do this, a male can only be the crown prince, or he could be the one to occupy the crown or the throne. So all of them were waiting to have a son. This is the reason why in many of the tales you will not hear about Shanta. But when you read Ramayan, as I said in one of my videos, Ramayan Satkoti Apara, Ramayan is very deep. It can go 100 crore times deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So there will be many other connected stories that you would get access to in due course of time. Right now I am just sticking to the basic Ramayan, the basic Valmiki Ramayan. And with time, I will share other tales and other stories that are also connected to Ramayan. King Dasrath was also aware of the undercurrent of gloom all around the palace and the kingdom. As was customary in those ancient times, the king was advised to perform sacrificial rituals called the yajna. Accordingly, arrangements were made for the vast resources required for such yagna or yajna. Due invitations were sent to the most learned and expert pandits and brahmins who would perform such a yajna. Yajna or yagna or yagya, there are different names for it. Many months passed by in these rituals, and at last the Agni Devta, the Yagna Devta god, was pleased, and the rituals and sacrifices bore fruits. Out of the Yagna Kunda arose, Yagna Kunda means that there's a holy fire, and in that fire, when we do Havan, there's a holy fire, and that from that fire itself the god appeared. And once the divine form appeared in front of all of them, the divine form said, "O king, I am very much pleased with your deep devotion and faith in me. I offer you these 4 fruits which would fulfill the desire of the royal family. Your queens would bear sons in due course of time after ingesting the fruit." So there was some kind of divine intervention, you can say, and it is mentioned in Mahabharata that the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari were actually born in bottles. That's how they mentioned it, in glass bottles, which I think in today's world people would call them test tube babies. So back in those days, the advanced technology allowed people to have children in different ways. Here in this case, we are being shown divine intervention, where they perform some rituals and they keep doing the rituals for months. It doesn't happen in a day or two. And finally, this type of boon is given to the king and his 3 wives. The king, the queens, and for that matter, the whole kingdom of Ayodhya was agog with pleasure and joy that knew no bounds. Kaushalya and Kaikeyi received 1 fruit each, and remaining 2 came to Sumitra. In due course of time, Sri Ram was born to Kaushalya, Bharat to Kaikeyi, and Sumitra, who ate 2 fruits, gave birth to 2 sons, Lakshman and Shatrughna. The palace was filled with joy and merriment. The queens were overjoyed with the arrival of these 4 lovely princes. Ram was born of the eldest queen and hence attracted special attention, as the eldest son always had the first claim to the royal throne. This is like given. The four brothers grew under the loving care of their parents and relatives in the royal comforts of the palace. There was no want or deficiency of any kind after this. All four princes were sharp, intelligent, brave, and healthy. They were obedient and respectful towards their parents and teachers, and the love amongst these four brothers knew no bounds or precedence. As they grew up, the old king made arrangements for their best education in humanities, arts, science, and expertise in war games. So the good thing back in those days was how the education system was. All the four brothers were sent to Gurukul, where they lived with their guru and guru mother, guru ma as we say. And whether they were king's sons or whether it was a common man's son, they would all live together in the same hostel facility. They would sleep on the floor, they would live with the animals, they would learn how to grow their own food, and at the same time they would also learn very high quality technique of warfare. So all of these things were given as education, and in all those years the children were not allowed to meet their parents. They would meet their parents only once their education is complete. So that type of detachment was present in the parents back then, who wanted to give their sons and daughters, their children, the best education. Now, as per Ramayan, I was watching the show once and I saw that all the boys were there. So I was literally wondering what happens to the women. Where do they go for education? So I found out that the girls used to be homeschooled and the boys would go to the Gurukuls. But they would be taught almost the same things. And some people were even giving me this opinion that back in those days, women were taken care of. Everybody used to love their daughters a lot. The daughters were so precious that they would not leave the daughters. They would take care of the daughter because it was also a fact in Indian culture. In fact, in West also this happens, that when a woman marries, she leaves the parents' home and she goes to the husband's house. So that's why the parents were not really in favor of letting the girl child also go away, because they knew that she any which way has limited time with us and she would get married and go to her husband's house. So we want to take care of her, and they would want their daughters to spend their time with the parents, with the family, and once they are at the right age, they would get married and then sent with their husbands. And the boys would get all of the coaching for astras and shastras, not only just education, formal education, but they would also be very skilled in warfare. And also the women used to receive the same information. The women also knew how to fight in the battle. Not only this, the children would also learn the skills in music, in arts, in dancing, singing, everything. So it was almost like, you can say, an all-rounder kind of education that the children back in those days would receive, and there was a lot of equality also. It was not about money. The gurus, the teachers, husband and wife both would take care of the students. They would literally act like parents. They would have a lot of authority, lot of right on their children. Even though they are not their biological children, but they would have a lot of authority to make decisions, correct decisions for those children. So finally, all the boys, all the four crown prince, they acquired all the special skills in archery, etc. at the holy feet of their teachers, Vashishta and Vishwamitra. Because this story is given in brief, I would like to share with you guys that the first guru was Guru Vashisht, and the second one was Vishwamitra, and Vishwamitra actually took Ram and Lakshman with him later on. He did not work with Shatrughna and Bharat, but only with Ram and Lakshman, but that is a part of the story. After completing their education under Guru Vashisht, all four brothers go back to the king's palace. At this time, Sri Ram and Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughan, all are pretty young. They are still teenage boys. They are still in their teen boys. This is where I'm going to pause the story here, this chapter here, and I will move to the next chapter in the next video. Thank you so much for being here with me. One love and peace out, and Jai Shri Ram.